All right, coming up on this Afro Takes episode, it's doing business in Africa.
We are discussing the African economy, right?
Yep.
Exciting.
As the Western business models are often ill-suited to Africa's unique economic and social landscape.
Right.
So this episode examines the need for adaptation and innovation to meet local conditions.
On that, the questions are, what challenges hinder sustainable business growth in Africa?
How can digitalization transform African economies and businesses?
And what strategies foster localized and successful African businesses?
So stay tuned as we Afro-take the economic pulse of Africa.
This is Afro-take, the economic pulse of Africa, with Nate and Janine.
Now, the World Bank has released its Doing Business in 2018 report. The report ranks economies according to their ease of doing business. With more details on how African countries rank in Africa.
Mauritius was in 25th place. It's the highest ranked economy in sub-Saharan Africa. In Africa, it revealed the following, that Nigeria, Malawi, and Zambia were among this year's top 10 improvers in banking, as we have reported on.
A warm welcome to our very first episode here on the Afro-take podcast. I'm Nate, and we discuss the economic pulse of Africa, and here with my co-host, Janine.
Hello and welcome.
All right, so today we're going to jump into the world of international business.
Okay.
Specifically in Africa.
Sounds good.
And, you know, we've got this article here from the World Economic Forum.
Mm-hmm. Doing
business in Africa requires a different approach.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's got me thinking, like, you know, we hear so much about Africa's potential.
Right.
Right. A quarter of the world's population by 2050.
Huge. Yeah.
Young, dynamic workforce. But then we see all these big companies, Unilever, Nestle, Diageo, scaling back their operations.
It's a head scratcher, isn't it?
Yeah. So what's the deal? What are we missing here?
Well, the article kind of argues that it's not the things you might immediately think of, like political instability or lack of infrastructure.
Interesting.
It's more like there's this mismatch between like the traditional Western business models and how the African market actually works.
So you can't just like bring in a Western product.
Right.
And expect it to sell.
Yeah, exactly. Like they really emphasize that Africa is so diverse.
Okay.
And not just geographically. I mean, you've got 54 countries.
Right.
Each with its own cultures, languages, currencies.
Right.
Market philosophies. I mean, even within countries sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So like if you took a business model that worked, say, in Germany.
Yeah.
And tried to put it in like a market in Lagos.
Yeah. Good luck, right?
It wouldn't work.
No, it just wouldn't translate.
Yeah, so this copy and paste thing is a recipe for disaster.
Definitely. And they use this phrase, localization and fragmentation at scale.
Okay.
Which is kind of a mouthful.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, it's like you can't just translate your marketing or tweak a product a little.
Right.
It's a much deeper adaptation.
I see.
You have to really understand the market and be willing to adjust.
And then there's the whole talent question.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Because the article says something like 83% of Africans work in the informal sector.
It's a huge number.
So what does that mean for these companies trying to hire people?
Well, it throws a wrench in the traditional Western ways of doing things.
Okay.
Like recruitment benefits, career paths.
You can't just assume everyone wants a 9-to-5 job.
Right, exactly. Not everyone wants to climb the corporate ladder.
So how do they adapt to that?
It's a real challenge. I think this talent mismatch.
Yeah.
It's a big part of why companies are leaving.
I can see that.
They need to think outside the box, understand the aspirations of these workers, and find ways to tap into that.
It's like they need a whole new playbook.
Pretty much. And the article goes beyond just consumer demand.
Okay.
It talks about a whole system approach.
I like that. What does that look like practically, though?
Well, you have to think beyond just having customers.
Okay.
You need suppliers who can get you materials, distribution networks to get your product to people.
Makes sense.
And the infrastructure, like transportation and energy to support it all.
It's like a ripple effect.
Exactly. You need the whole system to work.
And in Africa, where things are often fragmented.
Yes, very fragmented.
It's even more important.
Absolutely. And it's not easy.
So is anyone doing this well?
Well, the article talks about Uber as a good example.
Oh, interesting. What do they do?
Well, for one, they embraced cash payments.
Makes sense with so much of the economy being cash-based.
Exactly. And they also partnered with local vehicle providers.
Oh, so drivers could more easily meet their requirements.
Right. They adapted to what was already there.
Instead of trying to force their model on the market.
Yeah, and the article calls this localization and fragmentation at scale.
Right? They said that before. What does it mean?
It's about balancing a consistent brand and operation,
Okay.
but tailoring it to each market.
It's like a recipe with a base,
Yeah,
but you adjust the spices depending on where you are,
I like that analogy.
so you still get the essence of the dish.
Exactly, but it's suited to the local taste.
So doing business in Africa is way more complex than in developed markets.
It definitely has its nuances.
Yeah, you really have to understand the different markets.
Absolutely, and find solutions that benefit everyone.
Now, the article also mentioned Rwanda as a positive example.
Yeah, they've had some impressive success.
So what did they do differently to attract foreign investment?
Well, their approach was pretty unique, and it seemed to work really well.
All right, let's dive into that in the next segment.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Stay tuned because we've got a lot more to uncover in this deep dive into business in Africa.
Definitely lots more to explore.
There are many export opportunities out there for UK businesses. To fully take advantage of them, you need the right finance or insurance in place. That's where the government can help through UK Export Finance. UK Export Finance's mission is to ensure that no viable UK export fails for lack of finance or insurance, and to help UK businesses win overseas contracts, fulfill orders, and get paid. Over the past 5 years, UK Export Finance has provided over £14 billion worth of support to UK companies, helping them export to over 100 markets around the world. This is AfroTake, the economic pulse of Africa, with Nate and Janine. Let's dive in.
Yeah, Rwanda really did things differently. They were proactive.
So they didn't just wait around.
No, they went out and made themselves attractive to investors.
How'd they do that?
Partnerships were key.
Okay.
They really focused on collaborating with companies.
So both local and foreign companies.
Yeah, it was about creating this sense of shared purpose.
Like, we're all in this together.
Exactly. Both sides benefiting, and a big part of that was ICT infrastructure.
Right. The article mentioned that. Why was that so important?
Well, they understood that in today's world, internet access is essential.
It's not a luxury anymore.
No, it's like the backbone of the economy.
And that investment paid off, right?
Yep.
They became a tech hub.
Absolutely. They attracted big tech companies, startups, tons of jobs.
It's like they skipped ahead into the digital age.
Exactly. And it shows how smart infrastructure investments can change a country's path.
It's not just about attracting factories anymore.
Right. Rwanda was thinking long term.
They invested in education, healthcare, too.
Yeah, it wasn't just about cheap labor or tax breaks.
They were creating a whole environment for success.
Exactly, an ecosystem where businesses could thrive and contribute back.
So Rwanda's story challenges the old idea that developing countries should just focus on manufacturing,
Yeah, they showed the power of knowledge-based industries.
using technology to drive growth.
Exactly, and that brings us to another point the article makes about businesses as market makers.
That's an interesting concept. What does that even mean in the context of Africa?
It means going beyond just trying to profit from an existing market.
Right.
It's about actually shaping and developing that market.
So it's not just about selling stuff, it's about building something bigger.
Right, it's about creating opportunities where there weren't any before.
It's like those companies that build schools or clinics.
Yeah, exactly. They're investing in the community.
They see that their success is tied to the well-being of the people around them.
Right, it's a more holistic approach.
So if a company really wanted to be a market maker, what could that look like?
Well, imagine a company that sets up a factory in Africa,
Okay.
sourcing materials locally, training local workers, distributing through local networks.
That would create jobs, boost the local economy.
Yeah, and transfer skills and technology.
That's a win-win all around. What else?
What about a company that develops renewable energy solutions for rural communities
That would be amazing, providing electricity, improving lives.
and helping fight climate change?
So it's about seeing the potential where others might see only problems.
Exactly, and becoming part of the solution.
This market maker idea is really inspiring.
It's a new way of thinking about doing business in Africa.
It's less about taking and more about empowering.
Yep, it's about seeing Africa as a partner in progress.
So how does this market maker idea connect to the article's main point, adapt or fail?
Well, adapting to Africa means more than just tweaking your product.
Or taking cash?
Right. It's about understanding the deeper needs of the market.
And finding creative ways to meet those needs while also growing your business.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, innovative, even a bit daring.
So it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.
And making a positive impact while you're at it.
This whole conversation has been really eye-opening.
It's great to challenge our assumptions and explore new possibilities.
So for our listeners out there, think about this. How can we apply these lessons from Africa to our own work?
That's a great question.
To our own communities, to our efforts to make the world a better place.
The lessons we've discussed today, adaptation, collaboration, long-term vision, they're relevant everywhere.
This has been a fantastic deep dive.
It really has.
We've debunked myths, seen inspiring examples,
Yeah.
and explored a new way of thinking about business.
The more impactful way.
So I think we've covered a lot of ground, but there's one more thing I'd like to touch on.
What's that?
Well, the article pointed to Rwanda's success, their partnerships, their ICT investment.
Right.
I'd love to dig a bit deeper into what we can learn from their experience.
That's a great idea. Rwanda's story is full of valuable lessons.
Okay, so let's dive into that in our final segment.
Sounds good. Let's wrap things up.
Stay tuned, folks. We've got more to uncover in this deep dive into business in Africa. And just so you know, this is Afrotake Podcast, powered by Brand Blended Media.
Other economies in the region that perform well on the ease of doing business rankings are Rwanda, Kenya, Botswana, and South Africa. The lowest ranked economies are Somalia, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic. The good news is a record number of 83 reforms making it easier to do business were implemented in 36 of 48 economies in sub-Saharan Africa in the past year. This is the largest number of reforms ever recorded by the Doing Business Report in any region and represents 31% of all reforms implemented globally in the past year.
Okay, so we've talked about adapting to Africa.
Yeah.
The challenges, the opportunities, even this whole market maker thing.
Right.
But I want to go back to Rwanda for a minute.
Sure.
The article really highlighted their success.
They've done incredibly well.
So what made their approach so effective?
It's remarkable how they turned their economy around.
Right, from recovering from conflict to being this model of progress.
Exactly. It shows what strong leadership and planning can do.
So what were the key ingredients in their success?
Well, for starters, they were proactive.
They didn't just wait for investors to show up?
No, they went after them.
Okay.
Built partnerships, both local and international.
And they created this environment that was good for business.
Yeah, more than just offering cheap labor or tax breaks.
Right. They wanted businesses to feel supported to succeed.
Exactly, and for their success to benefit the whole country.
And a big part of that was their investment in ICT infrastructure.
Huge. That was a game changer.
Yeah. Why was that so important?
They understood that in this day and age, technology is key.
You can't develop without it.
No way. So they invested in broadband internet, created a good regulatory environment.
And that attracted those big tech companies.
And startups, lots of jobs.
It's like they jumped right into the digital age.
Exactly. And it shows that smart infrastructure investments can really pay off.
So they weren't just focused on old industries, they were building a knowledge-based economy.
Yeah. Thinking ahead. And it wasn't just tech either. They invested in education, healthcare too.
So they were creating this well-rounded environment for businesses.
Yeah. A foundation for long-term sustainable growth, not just quick wins.
And it worked. They've had steady growth, reduced poverty.
Improved healthcare and education.
It's really inspiring. It shows what's possible with the right approach.
It's a good model for other countries to look at.
So what are the main takeaways from Rwanda's experience?
Well, I think one big lesson is the importance of vision.
Having a clear idea of where you want to go.
Yeah, and being bold enough to make it happen.
So not just copying what everyone else is doing.
Right. Chart your own course. And another key takeaway is partnerships.
Those real collaborations with the private sector.
Yeah, it's more than just saying we're open for business.
You have to actually prove that you're committed to creating a good environment.
Right, build that trust and see businesses as partners.
Not just a source of income.
Exactly. And lastly, I think Rwanda shows how important strategic investment is.
In things like infrastructure, education, technology.
Yeah, those are the foundations of a strong economy.
So create the right conditions and businesses will flourish.
It's a much better approach than just offering short-term incentives.
Rwanda's story is a reminder that even after hardship, you can achieve amazing things.
Absolutely, with the right approach.
And I think their lessons apply not just to Africa.
No, they're relevant globally.
To any country looking to grow and build a better future.
It's about thinking long-term and making smart choices.
This whole deep dive has been so insightful.
I agree.
We debunked myths. We saw inspiring examples.
We explored a new way of thinking about business.
a more impactful way.
Yeah, I think we've all gained a fresh perspective.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay.
How can we apply these lessons from Africa to our own lives, our work, our communities?
It's a great question to think about.
Because these ideas, adaptation, collaboration, long-term vision, they matter everywhere.
They do. We can all learn from Rwanda's experience.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
This is Nate and Janine here on the AfroTake podcast, where we discuss the economic pulse of Africa. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning. Until the next episode,
Next time.
take care.